Welcome, everyone. Tonight we travel back to a world where time moved with the rising sun, and life was measured not in minutes, but in moments of toil, hunger, and fleeting warmth. This isn't the story of lords or ladies. It isn't about battles, crowns, or castles. Tonight we follow someone quieter, a common soul whose name was never written down, whose life passed in rhythm with the land, a medieval peasant. One day, from the first breath before sunrise to the last hush before sleep. Imagine the soft creak of a timber roof above you, the distant sound of animals stirring in the cold. No glass windows, no shoes by the fire, just damp earth, rough wool, and the scent of smoke in every breath. You rise not for adventure, but because the firewood won't gather itself, the chickens won't feed themselves, the field won't plow itself. From dawn to dusk, life is work, but within that work, small stories bloom. A crust of bread shared, a whispered joke between neighbors, a child's laugh on a muddy path. These are the invisible threads that wove together a life, hard, yes, but human. Tonight you won't hear of glory or grandeur. You'll hear the creak of a cartwheel, the scrape of a wooden bowl, the hush of evening prayers in a smoky hut. This is the quiet truth of the Middle Ages, not as history books tell it, but as it was lived, hour by hour. So, take a breath, let the past settle gently over your thoughts, and follow, step by step, through a single day that could have been yours in a world you almost remember. This is From Dawn to Death, a day in medieval times you'd never forget. Let the journey begin. Before the sun rises, cold ashes and bare feet. You are awake. There is no sound that has woken you, no sudden jolt from a dream. It is a slow, reluctant surfacing from a shallow and troubled sleep, an internal clock deep in your bones, tuned to a lifetime of necessity. The darkness in the hut is absolute, a thick, palpable blackness that smells of old smoke, damp earth, and the sour scent of unwashed bodies. You lie still for a moment, gathering the will to move, but you are already tired. The exhaustion of yesterday has not left you. It has simply settled deeper, a sediment of aches in your muscles and joints. The first sensation is the cold. It is not the crisp, clean cold of a winter morning, but a damp, penetrating chill that seems to radiate from the very ground beneath you. You are lying on a thin palliasse, a sackcloth mattress stuffed with straw, which over the months has become a lumpy, compacted mat. It offers little insulation from the packed earth floor, and the cold seeps through it, through your thin woolen tunic, and into your very core. Slowly, you push aside the heavy, coarse blanket you share with your family. The air in the hut hits your skin, colder still than the ground. You sit up, your back protesting, and your bare feet find the floor. It is not a floor of wood or stone, but of mud, packed down and hardened by years of use, yet still retaining a slick, cold dampness. It feels like stepping onto a smooth, cold stone. Your eyes, now accustomed to the gloom, make out the heart of your small world, the fire pit in the center of the room. It is a circle of stones containing a mound of gray ash. There is no comforting red glow. The fire is dead. The embers you so carefully banked last night have given up their ghost. This is a small disaster. It means the morning will be colder for longer. It means the day begins not with warmth, but with the painstaking, frustrating task of creating fire from scratch, striking a piece of flint against steel,
over a bundle of dry tinder, praying for a single precious spark. That is a job for later. For now, there is only the cold and the dark. You can hear the soft, rhythmic breathing of your family around you. Your wife, your children, a small huddle of humanity sharing what little warmth they can generate. Their presence is a comfort, but also a responsibility. Their survival, like yours, depends on this day, on the labor you are about to perform. The air you breathe is thick and stale. The smoke from last night's fire, having no chimney, has settled on every surface, and its acrid taste is the first thing you notice when you wake. It is a taste you have known your entire life. Beneath the smoke is the earthy smell of the floor, the animal tang of the chickens who roost in the rafters, and the faint ammonia scent of the corner of the hut that serves as a chamber pot. This is the perfume of your home, so familiar you barely register it anymore. You do not want to get up. Every fiber of your being craves a return to the oblivion of sleep, however troubled. But you know you cannot. The day does not wait. The lord of the manor does not wait. Hunger does not wait. It is an inexorable force, pulling you from your bed, demanding your attention. And so, with a quiet groan that is lost in the darkness, you arise. You stand in the center of your small, cold world, a single, anonymous figure, poised at the beginning of another day of struggle. The sun has not yet risen, but your day has already begun, and you are already tired.
A family cramped in one room. As your eyes adjust further to the Stygian gloom, the single, small room of your hut slowly resolves into familiar shapes. This is not just your bedroom. This is your entire world, a microcosm of your life, crowded with family, animals, and the constant presence of sickness. The space is no larger than a modern living room, perhaps smaller, and within these wattle and daub walls, your entire family lives, eats, and sleeps. You see the huddled form of your wife, Ilara, still asleep, her breathing a soft, steady rhythm in the silence. Beside her are your two children, a boy of 7 and a girl of 5, tangled together under the same coarse blanket. Their small bodies are a source of warmth, a vital resource in the cold nights, but they are also 2 more mouths to feed, 2 more bodies to keep warm, 2 more souls whose future is a constant, gnawing anxiety in the back of your mind. But you are not the only one sleeping here. In the corner, you can hear the soft grunting of the piglet you brought in for the winter to protect it from the cold and from thieves. Its presence adds a certain warmth to the hut, but also a distinct, pungent odor and another source of filth on the floor. In the rafters above, a half-dozen chickens are roosting, their dark forms like strange, feathered fruit. Occasionally one will stir, a soft cluck or a rustle of feathers breaking the quiet. Their droppings spatter the floor below, another mess to be navigated in the dark. This sharing of space with livestock is not a choice, it is a necessity. The animals are too valuable to be left outside, vulnerable to predators or to a desperate, hungry neighbor. They are your wealth, your insurance against total starvation. The eggs from the chickens, the meat from the pig, they are the difference between hardship and catastrophe. And so you live together, a strange, mixed household of humans and beasts, sharing the same air, the same floor, the same meager shelter. There is no escape from it, no quiet corner to retreat to. You're always together, always in sight, always in earshot. Your lives are woven together so tightly that you can sometimes feel the claustrophobia of it, the sense of being trapped not just by the walls of the hut, but by the very closeness of the people you love.
A visit to the ditch, because there are no toilets. The cold on your bare feet is a sharp reminder of the world outside your hut. A familiar, urgent pressure in your gut tells you it is time for the first chore of the day, a task that is as necessary as breathing and as unpleasant as the cold itself. You need to relieve yourself, and in your world, this is an act stripped of all modern notions of privacy and hygiene. There is no bathroom, no outhouse, no privy. Such structures are a luxury of towns or prosperous farms. Your toilet is the world itself. You push aside the heavy woven mat that serves as your door and step outside. The cold air is frigid and bites at your exposed skin. The darkness is not yet gone, but a faint gray luminescence has begun to outline the horizon. The ground is a treacherous landscape of mud and ice. A recent thaw, followed by a hard frost, has turned the village paths into a network of frozen, knife-edged ruts. You tread carefully, your bare feet seeking the flatter, less perilous spots. The smell hits you immediately. It is the raw, sharp stench of human and animal waste, frozen but not inert. Every household in the village disposes of its night soil, the contents of their chamber pots, in the same way, by tossing it into the street or onto the household dung heap. The smell is a constant, year-round feature of your life, but it has a particular acrid bite in the cold of winter. You make your way to your destination, a shallow ditch at the edge of your small garden plot. This is the designated spot, a place where custom dictates you should go. It is a slight improvement on simply using the street, but it is a meager concession to sanitation. You squat down, your thin tunic pulled up around your waist. The cold is shocking, a brutal assault on your exposed body. The wind seems to find every gap in your clothing, every inch of bare skin. You do the business quickly, without ceremony. There is no lingering, no contemplation. This is a purely functional act, to be completed as swiftly as possible. There is no toilet paper. You use what is at hand. In the summer, it might be a handful of leaves or grass. In the winter, it is a clump of snow, or perhaps nothing at all. You are long past the point of feeling disgust. This is simply the way things are. As you stand, you are acutely aware of your vulnerability. You are in the open, in the near darkness. A dog might wander by. A neighbor, on the same errand, might emerge from the hut next door. There is an unspoken agreement in the village to afford one another a certain degree of inattention during these moments, but the lack of true privacy is a constant low-level humiliation. You look around at the sleeping village. The smoke from a few early fires is beginning to rise from the roofs, but most of the huts are still dark and silent. You know that in a few hours, this entire area will be a mire of fresh waste, churned into the mud by the passage of feet and hooves. The concept of separating your living space from your waste is non-existent. The ditch where you are now standing is only a few feet from the well where your wife will later draw the water for your pottage. You do not understand bacteriology. You do not know how diseases are transmitted, but you live with the consequences every day. The constant stomach ailments, the fevers, the flux that carries away the weak, it is all born from this intimate, unthinking relationship with filth. Hygiene is not a luxury in your world. It is a concept that does not exist. You do not wash your hands after this act. There is no soap, and the water you have is too precious to be used for such a thing. You will simply wipe your hands on your tunic and go about your day. The invisible film of bacteria will go with you, to the food you eat, to the children you touch. Your visit to the ditch is over. You have performed the first, most basic ritual of the morning. It was a cold, smelly, and public affair. It has reacquainted you with the fundamental lack of comfort and cleanliness that defines your existence. And now, with that task complete, you can turn your mind to the next pressing need, the gnawing emptiness in your stomach. You turn and walk back towards your hut, your feet numb, your body chilled to the bone.
Breaking your fast on yesterday's bread. You return to the hut, the cold of the outside world clinging to you like a second skin. Your wife, Ilara, is now awake, her movements slow and stiff in the gloom. She has managed to coax a small, reluctant flame from the banked embers, and the fire is beginning to push back the worst of the chill. The next ritual of the morning can now begin, breaking the fast. Do not imagine a warm, comforting meal. Breakfast is not a pleasure. It is a functional, hurried necessity, a way to put a thin layer of fuel into your body before the day's labor begins. The menu was unchanging, dictated by scarcity and tradition. Ilara goes to the wooden chest and takes out the centerpiece of the meal, the bread. This is not a soft, airy loaf. It is a round, dense, heavy thing, made from a mixture of whatever coarse grains you have. This time of year, it is mostly barley and rye, with perhaps some ground peas mixed in to make the flour go further. It was baked a few days ago in the Lord's communal oven, and by now it is hard, its crust a formidable defense against a hungry mouth. She does not slice it. She takes a small, sharp knife, the same utility knife you both use for everything, from mending leather to cleaning your fingernails, and hacks off a thick wedge for you, and smaller ones for herself and the children. You take your portion. It is cold and heavy in your hand. In the weak firelight, you can see a faint bluish-green dusting of mold on one edge of the crust. You do not think of throwing it away. Food is far too precious. You simply scrape the mold off with your thumb and prepare to eat the rest. The taste of mildew will be a familiar, earthy tang among the other flavors. You put the bread to your mouth and bite down. It takes a real effort. The crust is like wood, and the inside is dense and chewy. Eating this bread is a form of labor in itself. Your jaw aches as you work your way through it. This is not the bread of a king. It is the bread of a peasant, designed to be filling and long-lasting, not pleasant. To wash down this dry, hard fare, Ilara pours a measure of ale into a shared wooden cup. This is not the strong, flavorful ale of a tavern. It is small beer, a weak, watery brew that she makes herself. It is low in alcohol, cloudy, and slightly sour. But it is safer than drinking the water from the well, as the brewing process kills most of the germs. It is your family's primary source of hydration. You take a long swallow. It is cold, and the taste is thin, but it is wet, and it provides a few vital calories. You pass the cup to your wife, and then to your son. Everyone drinks from the same vessel. What else is there? This morning there is an onion. Ilara hands you a small, raw onion from a string hanging from the rafters. You peel away the dry outer layers and bite into it. The sharp, pungent crunch is a welcome shock of flavor in a world of blandness. It makes your eyes water, but it feels like it scours the stale taste of sleep from your mouth. The onion is your spice, your condiment, your sliver of variety. There is no pottage this morning. The pot from last night is empty. There will be no warm food until midday at the earliest. This breakfast is entirely cold affair. No warmth from the food, only the meager heat from the growing fire. You eat in near silence, the only sounds the crackling of the fire and the vigorous chewing of hard bread. The children eat slowly, their small jaws working hard. There is no conversation, no lingering. The meal is consumed with a grim efficiency. You are not eating for pleasure. You are eating to live. You are eating to gain just enough energy to walk to the fields and begin a day of work that will burn far more calories than this meager meal provides. The meal does not leave you feeling full. It simply takes the sharpest, most painful edge off your hunger. The dull, hollow ache in your stomach remains, a constant companion. The feeling of being truly satiated is a distant memory, a sensation reserved for a rare feast day like Christmas or a wedding. On a normal day, hunger is your natural state. The last of the bread is eaten. The last of the ale is drunk. The breakfast ritual is complete. It has provided no comfort, little pleasure, and only a bare minimum of sustenance. It was a habit, A necessity, a joyless but essential step in the long, hard process of surviving another day.
Dressing in itch and dirt. The meager breakfast is finished, a temporary truce declared in the war against hunger. Now you must prepare your body for the elements and for the labor ahead. The act of getting dressed is simple, for you have no choices to make. You are already wearing most of your clothes. You slept, as you always do, in your innermost layer of clothing. For a man, this is a pair of brays, loose linen undertrousers, and a long linen shirt or smock. This underlayer is the softest thing you own, but soft is a relative term. The linen is homespun, coarse, and yellowed with age and infrequent washing. It is the garment that lives closest to your skin, absorbing your sweat, your grime, and the oils of your body. It is also a haven for your constant companions, body lice. You can feel them now, a familiar, low-grade itch in the seams of the fabric, around your waist, under your arms. You scratch absently, your fingernails raking across your skin. The lice are a fact of life, an irritation so constant that you have almost learned to ignore it, like the ache in your back or the hunger in your belly. Over this underlayer, you wear your tunic or coot. It is your primary garment, a simple T-shaped piece of clothing made of thick, heavy wool. You also slept in this for warmth. The wool is not the soft, refined fabric of a nobleman's cloak. It is rough, oily, and intensely itchy. The natural lanolin in the wool makes it water-resistant and warm even when damp, but it also gives it a greasy feel and a permanent, distinct smell of wet sheep. The tunic is a map of your life. Its original color, a dull brown derived from walnut husks, has faded to a nondescript, muddy gray. It is stained with dirt, grease from cooking, and the faint dark speckles of old blood from 1,000 minor cuts and scrapes. The elbows are worn thin, and the hem is frayed. Your wife has patched it many times, using scraps of other old garments, so it is a patchwork of different shades and textures. It has likely not been washed in its entire life. To wash wool is to risk shrinking and ruining it. You simply beat the dust out of it and pick off the worst of the dirt. You stand up and pull the tunic down, adjusting it on your body. You fasten a simple leather belt around your waist. From this belt, you will hang the few tools of your daily life, your utility knife in its leather sheath, and perhaps a small purse for the rare occasion when you might handle a coin. On your legs, you pull on your hose. These are not trousers, but two separate woolen stockings, each one covering a leg from foot to thigh. They are held up by being tied to the belt of your brays. They are baggy, wrinkled, and like your tunic, patched in several places, especially at the knee and the heel. Finally, you must consider your feet. For much of the year, you work barefoot, your feet calloused and tough. But in the frozen mud of winter, footwear is a necessity. Your shoes are your most prized possession. They are simple leather turn shoes with a thin sole and no distinction between left and right. They are held on with a leather thong. They are worn, cracked, and soaked through from yesterday's work in the damp fields. You stuff some dry moss into them, a futile attempt to absorb the moisture and provide a little insulation. You force your feet into the cold, damp leather. The feeling is miserable, but it is better than the direct, biting cold of the frozen ground. You are now dressed. You have not looked in a mirror. You do not own one. Your appearance is of no concern. Your clothes are not a statement of fashion, but a functional, uncomfortable, and dirty suit of armor against the world. Every layer is itchy. Every garment carries the smell of smoke, sweat, and damp wool. Every seam is a potential home for lice. You feel the familiar weight of the damp wool, the persistent itch against your skin, the cold leather of your shoes.
You are as ready as you will ever be. You are clothed in the fabric of your own hardship, a walking testament to a life of labor and want. And now you must take this tired, itchy, and poorly fed body out into the world and put it to work.
Out into the mist, fields, and obligation. You push aside the heavy mat at the entrance of your hut and step out into the world. The sun has not yet crested the horizon, but the sky has lightened from black to a deep, pearlescent gray. A thick mist hangs over the village, clinging to the damp ground and muffling all sound. The air is cold and wet, and each breath you take is a visible cloud. There is no moment of quiet reflection, no time to prepare yourself mentally for the day. The moment you step outside, you are on a clock, and that clock is owned by your Lord. Your first destination is the field, and your first duty is to Him. The path through the village is a treacherous obstacle course. The frozen mud of the night is beginning to thaw as the temperature inches upwards, turning the ground into a thick, clinging sludge. Your feet sink with every step, the cold mud sucking at your shoes. You walk with your head down, your eyes scanning the ground for the deepest puddles and the sharpest stones. You are not alone. Other figures emerge from the surrounding huts, dark silhouettes in the mist, all moving in the same direction. They are your neighbors, your fellow serfs. There are no cheerful greetings, no morning pleasantries. There is only a shared, silent understanding. You're all bound for the same place, to perform the same work, under the same obligation. A quiet nod, a grunted acknowledgement. That is the extent of your communication. Everyone is conserving their energy for the labor to come. You pass the small stone church, its shape indistinct in the mist. You might cross yourself out of habit, a silent prayer for strength or for mercy. You pass the slightly larger, timber-framed house of the Reeve, the Lord's overseer. A curl of smoke is already rising from its chimney, a real chimney, a mark of his status. He will be out in the fields soon, watching you, making sure you are not shirking your duty. The thought of his critical gaze is a weight on your shoulders before you have even begun to work. You leave the huddle of the village behind and enter the vast, open fields of the manor. They are not the neat, enclosed fields of a modern farm. They are great, unfenced expanses, divided into long, narrow strips. A patchwork of browns and grays stretches out before you, disappearing into the mist. Some of these strips are yours to farm for your own family. But many more, the largest and best of them, belong to the Lord. This is His domain, and that is where you are headed this morning. This is your corvée day, your day of labor rent. The work you do today will not feed your family. The grain you sow will not fill your larder. It all belongs to the Lord. It is the price you pay for your existence, for the right to live on His land and to work your own small strips on other days. You feel a familiar dull resentment. Your own fields need tending. There is weeding to be done, a fence to be mended, but that must wait. The Lord's work comes first, always. It is an unchangeable law of your world. You arrive at the designated strip of land. A few other men are already there, leaning on their tools, their breath misting in the cold air. The oxen, their great horned heads drooping, are yoked to the heavy wooden plow. The Reeve is there, a stern, stout man, his face grim. He gives you a sharp, appraising look as you approach, a look that says, "You're late," even though you are not. There is no time to rest. There is no gentle start to the day. The moment you arrive, you're expected to begin.
You take your place, gripping the cold, rough handle of the plow. The reeve shouts in order. The boy at the front of the team prods the oxen with a long stick, and with a great groaning creak of wood and leather, the day's work begins. The iron tip of the plow bites into the cold, wet earth, and you lean into it, your entire body straining against the resistance of the land you serve, but will never own. The mist swirls around you, and the long, hard day stretches out before you, a furrow to be plowed, an obligation to be met.
Tools are shared, and so is misery. The great heavy plow lurches forward, pulled by a team of 4 straining oxen. Your hands, already calloused, grip the 2 wooden handles, fighting to keep the plowshare cutting a straight, even furrow in the heavy, damp soil. This is the central act of your agricultural world, and it is a brutal, all-consuming form of labor. The plow itself is a precious communal resource. It does not belong to you. It belongs to the Lord, or perhaps it is shared among several families in the village. It is a clumsy, inefficient tool, made mostly of wood, though its cutting edge, the share, is tipped with iron, a valuable and expensive component. It does not turn the soil so much as it rips a deep gash in it, and it takes the combined strength of the oxen and your own body to force it through the earth. Every rock and root hidden beneath the surface sends a jarring shock up through the plow handles, into your arms and down your spine. You must constantly adjust your weight, leaning hard to one side or the other to keep the furrow from wavering. Your feet slip and slide in the churned-up mud, and you struggle to maintain your balance. It is a full-body struggle, a wrestling match with the land itself. The oxen are your partners in this struggle. They are slow, powerful, immensely strong, but also stubborn. A boy, perhaps your own son, walks at their head, goading them on with a stick and a series of rhythmic, encouraging cries. The animal's breath steams in the cold air, their great muscles bunching and straining under the yoke. They are the engine of this enterprise, and their well-being is paramount. An ox is more valuable than a man. If an ox were to collapse from exhaustion or injury, it would be a catastrophe for the entire village, a loss of power that would be almost impossible to replace. You have seen it happen before. You remember the bleak, hungry winter that followed the year the best ox broke its leg. So you watch the animals carefully, listening to their breathing, looking for signs of fatigue. You are not working alone. Plowing a field this size requires a team of men. One man to guide the plow, one to lead the oxen, and perhaps another to clear away rocks or clumps of earth. You work together in a shared rhythm of misery. There is little conversation. You're all too focused on the task, too breathless from the exertion. The only sounds are the creaking of the wooden plow, the jingle of the harness, and the heavy, wet breathing of the oxen and the shouts of the boy. This communal labor creates a bond, a gruff, unspoken solidarity. You all know the ache in your backs. You all feel the same burning in your thighs. You all share the same fear of the reeve's critical eye. Misery, when shared, is slightly more endurable. You might exchange a quick knowing glance with the man working beside you, a look that communicates a whole world of shared hardship without a single word. The tools you use are simple, often crude, and passed down through generations. Your scythe for mowing hay, your sickle for reaping grain, they have wooden handles worn smooth by the hands of your father and your grandfather. They are sharpened again and again until the blade is a thin, worn sliver of its former self. These tools are extensions of your body, and you know their every flaw, their every balance point. But the most important tools, the plow, the harrow, the cart, are not yours. They are part of the manorial system, controlled by the Lord, and used according to a strict schedule. You must wait your turn to use the plow, which means you cannot always work your own fields at the optimal time. You are dependent on the Lord's equipment, another chain that binds you to His will. The work is slow, monotonous, and utterly draining. You walk the length of the long furrow, a quarter of a mile or more. Then the entire cumbersome team of men, animals, and equipment must be turned around, a difficult and time-consuming process, to start the next furrow beside the first. Back and forth, under the cold, gray sky. Hours pass. The mist begins to burn off, but the air remains cold. Your body is slick with sweat under your woolen tunic. Your hands are raw. Your back is a single continuous sheet of pain. You look at the vast expanse of the field yet to be plowed, and it seems an impossible task. But you keep going. You have no choice. This is your work. This is your life. And the plow, your shared tool of survival and servitude, continues its slow, painful journey through the earth.
A village without comfort. The work in the Lord's field continues, a relentless cycle of plowing and turning. For a moment, you pause at the end of a furrow, catching your breath, and you look back towards your village. From this distance, in the flat morning light, it could almost look peaceful, a small, quiet huddle of thatched roofs. But you know the truth. Your village is not a place of peace. It is a place without comfort, a cauldron of noise, friction, and constant low-level chaos. The very layout of the village is designed for community, but not for privacy. Your huts are clustered tightly together, separated by only a few feet of muddy ground. You live in your neighbors' pockets. You hear their arguments through the thin wattle and daub walls. You hear their babies crying in the night. You know who is sick, who has had a good harvest, and who is on the verge of starvation. There are no secrets in a place like this. This closeness can be a source of strength. Your neighbors will help you raise a new roof beam, or lend you a handful of flour when yours is gone. They will attend your daughter's wedding and mourn with you at your father's funeral. You are bound together by a web of shared experience and mutual dependence. But this same closeness is also a source of constant friction. Disputes are common and bitter. Your neighbor's pig wanders into your garden and eats your cabbages. Your chickens scratch up their newly sown seeds. You accuse them of diverting water from the communal ditch. They accuse you of stealing firewood. These small conflicts can fester for years, creating a permanent, simmering animosity between families. They are settled in the manor court, where the reeve dispenses a rough justice that often satisfies no one and results in fines that you can ill afford. The village is never quiet. From dawn till dusk, it is a cacophony of sounds: the crowing of roosters, the barking of dogs, the lowing of cattle, the squealing of pigs. The clang of the blacksmith's hammer on his anvil is the village heartbeat, a constant rhythmic punctuation to the day. Women shout to each other as they work. Children cry and laugh and shriek in their games. There is no escape from the noise. The concept of a quiet, peaceful home is a fantasy. And the village is filthy. As we have seen, the paths are rivers of mud and waste, but the filth is everywhere. Animals roam freely, leaving their droppings wherever they please. Heaps of dung and refuse accumulate near every hut, buzzing with flies in the summer and festering in the rain. The air is thick with the smells of life and decay, a potent mixture of manure, wood smoke, and unwashed humanity. There are no public services, no amenities. The church is the only communal building, a place for prayer and for occasional legal proceedings. There is no school for your children. There is no hospital for your sick. There is no marketplace for you to easily buy and sell goods. All of that is in the town, a long and dangerous walk away. Your village is an isolated, self-contained unit of survival with no external support. The social hierarchy is rigid and visible. The reeve's house is slightly larger than yours. The priest has his own dwelling, perhaps with a small stone foundation. The freeholders, if there are any in your village, have more land and better livestock. You are acutely aware of your place at the bottom of this small pyramid. You show deference to those above you, you keep your head down,
You do not cause trouble. And overlaying all of this is the constant threat of external danger. The village has no walls, no defenses. It is a soft, vulnerable target for raiding soldiers, for bandits, for anyone with a weapon and ill intent. Your sense of security is non-existent. You are a community of potential victims, huddled together for a warmth that is as much psychological as it is physical. So, as you look at your village from the field, you see it not as a peaceful, idyllic home, but as it truly is. A loud, crowded, dirty, and quarrelsome place, bound together by necessity and fear. It is the only home you have, the only world you know, but it is a world almost entirely devoid of comfort.
Women's work is never done. While you toil in the Lord's field, wrestling with the heavy plow, another world of labor is unfolding back in the village. It is the world of your wife, Ilara. Her work is just as grueling as yours, just as essential, but it is a different kind of labor. It is a relentless, cyclical, and often invisible struggle to keep the fragile flame of your family's life from being extinguished. Her day began in the same cold darkness as yours, but her tasks were immediate and domestic. While you walked to the fields, she was already at work, her day a non-stop series of demanding chores. Her first task, after coaxing the fire to life, was to fetch water. She walks to the village well or stream, a heavy wooden yoke across her shoulders, 2 large buckets dangling from it. The path is slippery, the buckets are heavy. She will make this trip several times today. The water she brings back will be used for cooking, for the minimal cleaning you can afford, and for the animals. It is the lifeblood of the household, and she is its carrier. Then she must tend to the livestock. She feeds the piglet, she scatters grain for the chickens, she milks the family's scrawny goat, her fingers numb with cold. The animals are her responsibility, and their health and productivity are a direct result of her care. Her main task for much of the day is the preparation of food. The centerpiece of this is the pottage, the perpetual stew that is the staple of your diet. She keeps the pot simmering over the fire all day, constantly adding to it. She goes to your small garden plot and pulls up whatever is available, a few leeks, a cabbage, a handful of tough greens. She adds these to the pot along with a measure of barley. She must stir it frequently to keep it from burning. The pottage pot is the center of her universe, a constant, demanding presence. And while the pottage simmers, her hands are never idle. She sits on a low stool by the fire, and she spins. With a simple drop spindle, she transforms a bundle of raw, greasy wool into a long, continuous thread. This is a skill she has honed since she was a small girl. Her fingers move automatically, a rhythmic, hypnotic dance of pulling, twisting, and winding. The thread she produces is vital. It will be used to patch your worn-out tunic, to knit a stocking for a child, or perhaps, if she can produce a surplus, to be woven into a piece of rough cloth that can be sold or bartered for something the family needs. She will spend thousands of hours this year, in snatched moments between other chores, just spinning. Then there is the endless, thankless work of cleaning. She sweeps the dirt floor of the hut with a rough broom made of twigs, trying to keep the accumulated filth of humans and animals at bay. She scrubs the cooking pot with sand and water. She might take your family's few linen undergarments down to the stream and spend an hour beating them against a rock with a wooden paddle, a strenuous and cold task. And woven through all this is the care of your children. She nurses the baby, she soothes the crying toddler, she keeps the 5-year-old from wandering into the fire or out into the muddy lane. She is their teacher, their protector, and the source of all their comfort. She does this while balancing all her other tasks, her attention constantly divided, her patience stretched to its breaking point. Her work is not confined to a set number of hours. It is from before dawn until after dusk. It is a job that never ends. There is always more water to fetch, more wood to gather, more thread to spin, more mending to be done. And unlike your work, which is at least visible in the plowed field, much of her labor is invisible. It is the work of maintenance, of staving off chaos, of turning a hovel into a home. She is the manager of your family's scarcity. She is the one who must make a little food seem like enough. She is the one who must patch a garment until it is more patch than original fabric. She is a master of the art of making do. Her work is not just physical, it is a constant draining mental and emotional effort. And she does it all without recognition, without respite, and without complaint. Her work is the silent, unsung foundation upon which your entire world is built.
A visit from the tax collector. You are taking a brief rest, leaning on the handle of the plow, when you see a figure approaching across the field. It is not one of your fellow villagers. This man is better dressed, in a thick woolen cloak, and he walks with an air of authority. It is the Lord's reeve, and he is not alone. Beside him is a man you do not know, but whose role you can guess from his leather satchel and the parchment scroll he carries in his hand. This is a tax collector. A cold knot of dread tightens in your stomach. The reeve, as the Lord's local manager, is a familiar and unwelcome presence. He is the one who ensures your corvée labor is done, who fines you for infractions in the manor court, who embodies the Lord's power on a daily basis. But the man with him represents a different, more distant, and in some ways more frightening power. The power of the king, or perhaps the great regional duke. The two men stop before your small working party. The strange man unrolls his parchment. He speaks in a loud, formal voice, a mixture of French and Latin that you only partially understand. But the gist of it is clear. A new tax, a taille, has been levied to support the war effort. Every household in the region must pay its share. He has come not to collect, but to assess. His eyes, cold and calculating, sweep over the field, the oxen, the plow. He makes a note on his parchment. He is estimating the wealth of the manor, and by extension, the wealth of the families who work it. He will set a total amount for the village, and it will be up to the reeve and the village elders to decide how that sum is divided among the individual households. You know how this will go. The burden will fall most heavily on you, the serfs. The few freeholders in the village will find a way to have their assessment lowered. The reeve will ensure his own contribution is minimal. The weight of the king's demands will settle squarely on the shoulders of the poorest. The most terrifying part of the demand is that it must be paid in coin, in silver. You live your life largely without money. You pay your rent to the Lord in labor. You pay your tithe to the church in produce. You barter with your neighbors for the things you need. Coin is a rare and precious commodity. You might earn a few pennies by selling surplus eggs or a bit of homespun cloth at the market, but you have no savings. You have no hidden store of silver. To pay this tax, you will be forced to sell something you cannot afford to lose. You will have to take your piglet, the one you have been carefully fattening for the winter, to market. Or you will have to sell a sack of your precious barley, the grain that stands between your family and starvation. And you will have to sell it at a bad time, when everyone else is also trying to sell their goods to raise cash, driving the prices down. You will be forced to give away your future security for a handful of coins that will immediately be taken from you. You stand there, leaning on your plow, your heart heavy. You don't dare to speak, to protest. To question the king's tax is to question the king himself. It is an act of rebellion, and you know how rebellions are dealt with. So you remain silent, your face a mask of dull obedience. You watch as the tax collector makes his notes, his quill scratching on the parchment like an insect laying its eggs. The men turn and walk away, moving on to the next field, the next village, spreading their bad news across the countryside. You are left with the aftermath, a new fear, a new anxiety, a new and seemingly impossible problem to solve. How will you find the money? What will you have to sacrifice? The work of plowing suddenly seems even heavier, even more pointless. You are laboring to produce a crop, and you know that a portion of it is already claimed by the Lord, another portion by the priest, and now another portion will have to be sold to satisfy the king. You feel like a man trying to fill a bucket that has 3 holes in the bottom. No matter how hard you work, you will never be able to fill it. You will always be poor. You will always be in debt, and the tax collector will always return.
A lunch meant to keep you moving. The sun has reached its highest point in the sky, a pale, watery light that offers no warmth. The church bell in the distant village tolls for sext, the midday prayer. The reeve, with a grudging wave of his hand, signals a brief halt to the work. It is time for the midday meal. There is no shade to seek, no comfortable spot to rest. You simply unyoke the weary oxen and let them graze on the thin grass at the edge of the field. You and the other men slump to the ground where you stand, your bodies gratefully accepting the chance to stop moving. You sit on the cold, damp earth, your back against a boundary stone, every muscle in your body screaming with a dull, throbbing ache. You see a small figure approaching from the village. It is your daughter, her small legs moving quickly across the uneven ground. She is carrying your lunch, wrapped in a piece of cloth. She reaches you, her face flushed from the walk, and hands you the bundle. You give her a tired smile and a pat on the head. Her presence, her simple act of service, is a small, bright spot in the vast grayness of the day. You unwrap the cloth. Inside is a hunk of the same dark, hard bread from this morning, and a wooden bowl containing your main meal. Today it is a thick, lukewarm stew. You don't need to look closely to know its contents. It is the pottage from last night, a congealed mass of boiled barley, turnips, and a few withered carrots. It is a uniform, unappetizing grayish-brown. You do not have a spoon. You use your utility knife to scoop up some of the thick stew, or more often you break off a piece of your bread and use it as an edible utensil, sopping up the gruel. You eat quickly, mechanically. There is no pleasure in this food. The taste is bland, earthy, and monotonous. It is the same taste you have had for lunch 1,000 times before. But it is food. It is substance. And your body, screaming for fuel, craves it. You wash it down with a swallow of the weak ale from the leather flask your daughter also brought. The ale is tepid, but it provides a few more calories. Around you, the other men are doing the same, eating their own meager portions in a shared, weary silence. The only sounds are the chewing of food, the lowing of the oxen, and the sigh of the wind across the open field. There is no laughter, no light conversation. The break is too short, the exhaustion too profound for any pleasantries. You eat with one eye on the reeve, who is eating his own much more substantial lunch, a piece of roasted chicken and a loaf of white bread a short distance away. You know he is timing you. The break will not be long. It is just enough time to get some food into your stomach before you are expected to be back at work. This meal is a perfect metaphor for your life. It is functional, not enjoyable. It is about subsistence, not satisfaction. It is designed only to provide the bare minimum of energy required to keep you moving, to keep you laboring for the benefit of others. It does not nourish your spirit. It does not delight your senses. It simply keeps the machine of your body from breaking down completely. You finish the last of the stew,
wiping the bowl clean with the last piece of your bread. You eat the bread. Nothing is wasted. Your daughter takes the empty bowl and the flask and begins her walk back to the village. You watch her go, a small, resilient figure against the vast, bleak landscape. The meal is over. The brief pause is done. The reeve is already on his feet, shouting for the work to resume. You push yourself up from the ground, your joints creaking in protest. The food sits in your stomach like a stone, a heavy, bland promise of a few more hours of energy. And with a deep sigh that is lost on the wind, you take your place at the plow once more.
The afternoon wears on, a long, slow grind of repetitive motion. The rhythm of the work is hypnotic. Step, lean, push, turn. Your mind, dulled by fatigue, has retreated into a state of semi-consciousness. You are aware only of the strain in your shoulders, the mud on your feet, and the steady breathing of the oxen. And then, a new sound breaks the monotony. It is the sound of a horse's hooves, moving at a fast trot. This is not the slow, plodding pace of a farm animal. This is a horse with a purpose. You look up, your hand shielding your eyes against the glare of the pale sun. A rider is approaching from the direction of the Lord's castle. He is not a peasant. He is dressed in leather and wears the Lord's colors on a small pennant that flutters from his lance. He is a messenger, a man-at-arms from the Lord's personal retinue. His arrival brings an immediate halt to the work. The reeve walks forward to meet him, his expression a mixture of deference and apprehension. The arrival of a messenger from the castle is a major event, and it is never good news. The messenger does not dismount. He speaks down to the reeve from the height of his horse, a physical embodiment of the hierarchy of your world. You are too far away to hear the words, but you can see the gestures, the grim set of the messenger's jaw, the way the reeve nods his head, his face growing more and more concerned. A cold sense of dread begins to spread through the men in the field. You stop your work, leaning on your tools, watching the scene unfold. What new demand, what new disaster is being delivered? Perhaps the Lord requires a special levy of grain for his garrison. Perhaps he is summoning more men for forced labor on the castle's fortifications. Perhaps he has lost money gambling and has decided to impose a new, arbitrary tax on his tenants. Or perhaps the news is of the war. A battle has been lost. The English are closer than you thought. The possibilities are all bad. The Lord does not send a special messenger to announce a feast or a holiday. He sends one to deliver orders, to make demands, to bring news of some new burden that you will be forced to bear. The conversation ends. The messenger wheels his horse around without a backward glance and gallops away, his task completed. He has delivered his package of misery and is already on his way back to the relative comfort of the castle. The reeve stands alone for a moment, his face a mask of worry. Then he turns and strides toward you and the other workers. His face is grim. He gathers you together, and in a loud, harsh voice, he relays the news. The news is, as you feared, bad, but it is worse than you imagined. A band of English raiders has been spotted only a day's ride from here. They have sacked a nearby town and are moving in this direction. The Lord is not sending his soldiers to protect you. He is summoning all his men to defend the castle. But that is not all. He demands that all able-bodied men from the village report to the castle at once, not to fight, but to work.
The castle's outer defenses, the ditches, and the earthen ramparts must be strengthened immediately. You are to drop your tools, leave the plowing, and begin the long walk to the castle. The work is urgent, and it will be unending until the threat has passed. A collective groan, a murmur of despair ripples through the men. To leave the plowing now in the critical window of late winter is to risk the entire spring planting. To abandon your own homes and families to go and protect the Lord's castle feels like a bitter betrayal. But you have no choice. The Lord's order is absolute. To defy it is unthinkable. The day, which was already hard, has just become infinitely harder. Your afternoon of familiar labor has been replaced by a forced march, and the prospect of grueling, back-breaking work digging ditches under the threat of an imminent attack. You feel a surge of helpless anger, a bitter resentment at the injustice of it all. But you swallow it. You bottle it up. There is no one to complain to. There is nothing to be done. You leave the plow standing in the half-finished furrow. You call your son to take the oxen back to the village, and you turn your face towards the distant stony silhouette of the castle on the hill. The Lord's messenger has come and gone, and as always, he has left your world a little darker, a little harder, and a little more hopeless than it was before.
Rumors of war. The Reeves announcement hangs in the cold air, heavy and poisonous. The English are coming. The words are a death knell for the day's normal rhythms. The half-plowed field, the waiting oxen, the familiar pattern of your labor, it all recedes, replaced by a sharp, metallic taste of fear. This is not the first time you have heard such news. Rumors of war are the constant, grim background music of your life. The 100 Years' War is not a distant, abstract conflict for you. It is an immediate, recurring threat, a tide that ebbs and flows, but always threatens to wash over your small, fragile world. You have lived through these rumors before. You remember a few years ago when a similar panic swept the village. A company of English soldiers, a chevauchée, was raiding its way through the region. For a week you lived in a state of suspended terror. You slept in your clothes, ready to flee at a moment's notice. You buried your few valuables. You watched the horizon for the telltale sign of smoke. That time your village was lucky. The raiders turned south and the danger passed. But the village of Saint Cecile, just over the hill, was not so lucky. A few days later, a man from that village stumbled into yours, his face blackened with soot, his eyes hollow with shock. He told the story of what had happened. The soldiers had descended like a pack of wolves. They had taken all the food, all the livestock. They had brutalized the women. And then, as a final cruel gesture, they had set fire to the huts and the church. They had left nothing but ashes and weeping. The memory of that man's story is what gives the new rumor its terrible power. It is not an abstract threat. You can picture it. You can almost smell the smoke. You know that the difference between your village and the village of Saint Cecile is nothing but a matter of chance, of the whim of a foreign captain. As you begin the long, silent walk towards the castle, the other men around you begin to whisper. The rumor mill starts to grind. Where were they spotted? How many of them are there? Is it the main English army, or just a band of routiers, mercenaries, who are often more cruel? The stories are passed from man to man, each retelling adding a new layer of detail, a new gloss of terror.
One man swears he heard they have a new kind of weapon, a cannon that can smash stone walls. Another says they are led by a captain known for his extreme cruelty, a man they call the Butcher. You do not know if these stories are true, but in the atmosphere of fear, they feel true. The enemy becomes a monstrous, almost supernatural force, a legendary beast rather than a group of ordinary, greedy men. You think of your family back in the village. Your wife, Elara, will have heard the news by now. You can picture her face, tight with fear. She will be making her own desperate calculations. Should she hide the children in the woods? Should she try to flee? You feel a surge of guilt and helplessness. You are being marched away to defend the Lord's castle while your own family is left undefended, vulnerable. Your first duty should be to them, but the Lord's command supersedes all else. You are a tool in His hand, and He is pointing you away from what you most want to protect. The landscape you walk through seems to confirm the rumors. In the distance, on another hill, you see a thin column of dark smoke rising into the sky. It is too far away to be your village, but it is close enough to be a stark, terrifying message. Someone else's world is burning. Yours could be next. The rumors of war are a poison that seeps into everything. They turn your neighbors into frightened strangers. They turn your home into a potential trap. They turn the sky itself into a canvas for your worst fears. The war is not just a physical event of battles and raids. It is a psychological state, a constant, corrosive anxiety that eats away at your sense of safety, your hope for the future, and your faith in a just and ordered world. And now the rumor is no longer distant. It is here. It is a presence, walking beside you on the road to the castle.
You are called to dig trenches. The walk to the castle is a somber, silent procession. The initial flurry of whispered rumors has died down, replaced by a grim, weary resignation. You and the other men from your village trudge along the muddy track, your farm tools left behind, your bodies already aching from the morning's work. The castle, which is usually a distant, almost mythical landmark on the horizon, grows steadily larger, a formidable block of gray stone against the sky. As you approach, you see that you are not alone. Other groups of men are converging on the castle from all the surrounding villages, a small army of unwilling labor summoned by the same urgent fear. The scene at the base of the castle walls is one of organized chaos. The Lord's men-at-arms, their faces hard and impatient, are shouting orders, directing the arriving peasants. You are not led through the main gate into the castle itself. You would never be allowed inside that sacred precinct. You are directed to the outer defenses, the wide, dry ditch and the earthen rampart that form the first line of protection. This is where you will work. A man with a scarred face and a whip tucked into his belt, the master of works, assigns you your tools. They are not the familiar tools of the farm. You are given a heavy iron-tipped pick and a wide wooden shovel. The tools are crude, battered from years of use, and heavy in your hands. The task is simple and brutal. You are to deepen the defensive ditch and use the excavated earth to build up the height of the rampart behind it. The work is organized in teams. Some men, like you, are in the ditch, swinging the heavy picks into the cold, compacted earth and rock. The ground is hard, a mixture of clay and stone, and every swing of the pick sends a jarring shock through your arms. You must break up the earth, piece by painstaking piece. Behind you, other men with shovels scoop up the loosened dirt and heave it up onto the rampart, where another team is packing it down, trying to create a steep, defensible slope. The work is relentless, a continuous cycle of swinging, digging, lifting, and throwing. Your body is not accustomed to this kind of labor. Plowing is hard, but it has a rhythm. This is just brute force, a direct assault on the earth. Within an hour, your hands are raw, your palms blistered from the rough-hewn handles of the pick. Your back, already sore from the morning, is a screaming chorus of pain. The muscles in your shoulders and arms feel like they are being torn apart. The overseers show no mercy. They patrol the work site, their voices sharp and angry, their whips a constant implicit threat. They shout at anyone who pauses for a moment to catch their breath. "Work, you dogs! Do you want the English to find you resting?" They see you not as men, but as a source of raw, expendable energy. Your well-being is of no concern. All that matters is getting the work done before the raiders arrive. You work alongside men you have never met, peasants from other villages. You are all united by the same silent misery. You can see the exhaustion and fear in their faces, a mirror of your own. The only sounds are the thud of the picks, the scrape of the shovels, and the harsh shouts of the overseers. You feel a profound and bitter irony. Here you are, laboring to the point of collapse to protect your lord's fortress, a place you will never be allowed to enter, a symbol of the very power that oppresses you. You are building the walls of your own prison. The Lord and his family will be safe behind these stone walls, protected by the ditch that you are digging with your own sweat and blood. You and your family, in your flimsy hut, will be left to the mercy of the invaders. The afternoon sun begins to sink in the sky, but there is no sign of the work stopping. You know you will be working until the light fails, and perhaps even by torchlight after that. This is your new reality. Your body is no longer your own. It is an instrument of the Lord's will, a tool to be used and discarded in the defense of his property. You swing the pick again, the impact jarring your entire frame. You are no longer a farmer. You are a digger of ditches, a builder of walls, another anonymous, expendable body in the great grinding machine of war.
A neighbor falls sick. The work on the ditch continues under the fading light. Your movements have become slow, robotic. Your mind is a numb fog of pain and exhaustion. And then a commotion a little further down the line breaks your stupor. A man has collapsed. He was swinging his pick, and he simply crumpled to the ground. The overseer strides over, shouting at him to get up, assuming he is faking or just lazy. He prods the man with his boot, but the man does not move. Two of his neighbors rush to his side. They try to help him up, but he's dead weight, his body limp. They manage to drag him out of the ditch and lay him on the grass. You and the other workers pause, your own exhaustion forgotten for a moment, and you watch with a mixture of pity and fear. The man on the ground is shaking violently, his teeth chattering, though the day is not that cold. His face is flushed with a deep, unnatural red, and his skin is hot to the touch. He is muttering deliriously, his words a senseless jumble. It is a fever, a sudden, violent fever. This is not an uncommon sight. In a world of poor nutrition and constant physical stress, people get sick. But there is something about the suddenness and the severity of this man's illness that sends a chill through you, a chill that has nothing to do with the evening air. The overseer, seeing that the man is genuinely ill and of no more use, dismisses him with a contemptuous wave. "Get him out of here. He is no good to us." The man's neighbors, two peasants from his own village, are now faced with a difficult choice. They have been ordered to work, but they cannot abandon their friend. They decide to carry him home. They make a crude stretcher by tying their tunics between two long poles, and they lift their sick friend onto it. They begin the long, slow journey back to their village, their faces etched with worry. You watch them go until they are small figures in the distance.
and you are left with a profound sense of unease. Sickness is a constant threat, but here, in this crowded, makeshift worksite, the threat feels magnified. You are working shoulder to shoulder with hundreds of men from a dozen different villages. Any sickness present in one community can now easily spread to all the others. You think about the sick man. There is no doctor who will come to his hut. A physician trained in a university is a figure of immense wealth and prestige, reserved for the highest nobility. The man's family will have to rely on their own resources. His wife will turn to the local wise woman, the village healer. She will come with her knowledge of herbs, passed down through generations. She might prepare a tea from willow bark to try and bring down the fever. She might make a poultice of cooling leaves to place on his forehead. The family will also turn to the priest. He will come and say prayers, perhaps anoint the man with holy oil. They will pray to Dodd, to the Virgin Mary, to Saint Christopher, the protector against sudden death. They will pray for a miracle. But you know, from grim experience, that herbs and prayers are often not enough. A fever this violent can burn a life out in a matter of days. You have seen it happen many times. The incident has cast a pall over the worksite. The men work slowly, more quietly. Every man is now privately assessing his own body. Is that ache in my back just from the work, or is it something more? Is this feeling of weariness just exhaustion, or the beginning of a fever? You look at the man next to you, a stranger from another village, and you see him not just as a fellow sufferer, but as a potential carrier of disease. The fear of the English army is a fear of a sudden, violent death, but the fear of sickness is a fear of a slower, more intimate, and equally deadly enemy. It is a foe that can invade your body, your home, your family, and against which you have almost no defense. The work on the ditch continues, but now it is overlaid with a new, more personal layer of dread.
Preparing dinner in darkness. The light fails. The sun, a weak reddish smear on the horizon, finally disappears, and the world is plunged into the deep, cold blue of twilight. The overseers, their voices hoarse from a day of shouting, call a halt to the work on the ditch. The day's labor is done, but your ordeal is not over. You will not be returning to your own hut tonight. You and the other conscripted laborers are to sleep here, at the base of the castle, to be ready to start again at first light. You are dismissed, and you stumble away from the ditch, your body a single, unified symphony of pain. Your hands are raw and blistered. Your back feels as though it might snap, and every muscle fiber seems to be on fire. You are caked in a thick layer of mud and sweat. There is no shelter provided. You are expected to make do. You find a spot near a meager fire that some of the other men have started, using wood scrounged from a nearby copse. You huddle near the flames, the heat a blessed relief on your chilled skin, but the smoke stings your eyes and makes you cough. Now your thoughts turn to food. There is no communal kitchen, no rations provided by the Lord. You're expected to have brought your own food or to go without. You did not have time to prepare for this summons. You have nothing. Your stomach, which has been a dull ache all afternoon, is now a raging, hollow void. The smell of the food that other, more prepared men are cooking over the fire is a form of torture. You smell roasting squirrel, the earthy scent of a turnip sizzling in the embers. The aromas are intoxicating and maddening. A man from your own village, a little older and a little more prosperous than you, takes pity on you. He has a small sack with him, and from it he takes an extra piece of dark, hard bread and a raw turnip. He hands them to you without a word. You take them with a mumbled thanks, your pride warring with your desperate hunger.
Hunger wins. This is your dinner. You sit by the fire and gnaw on the hard, stale bread. It is tough, and your jaw aches from the effort of chewing, but it is substance. You eat the raw turnip, its watery, slightly sweet crunch, a welcome, if meager, addition. You have no water, so you scoop a handful of melted frost from the grass to wash down the dry food. You eat in the growing darkness, the firelight casting flickering, monstrous shadows on the faces of the men around you. The mood is somber and exhausted. There is little talk. Men are tending to their blisters, rubbing their aching muscles, or simply staring into the flames, their minds empty with fatigue. This is a lonely, desolate meal. You miss your own hearth, however humble. You miss the presence of your wife and children. You miss your own bowl, your own corner of the hut. Here, you are just one of dozens of anonymous, exhausted men, huddled in the dark at the foot of your master's fortress, eating a piece of charity bread. As you finish your meager dinner, the hunger is not gone. It has simply been blunted, pushed back for a few more hours. You know you will wake up hungry in the night. You look up at the great, dark mass of the castle. You know that within its walls, the Lord and his family are sitting down to a hot meal with multiple courses, served on pewter plates with wine to drink. The contrast is a bitter pill to swallow. The darkness is now complete. The fire is the only point of light in a vast, cold blackness. Your dinner is over. It was a meal of charity, eaten in dirt and darkness. A meal that has filled your stomach, but left your spirit feeling even emptier.
The church bell calls you to prayer. From the distance, across the dark and silent fields, a sound begins to toll. It is the bell from your village church ringing for vespers, the evening prayer. The sound is faint and thin, carried on the cold night air. It is a sound that has marked the end of every day of your life, a familiar rhythmic punctuation to the setting of the sun. Here, in this makeshift camp of misery at the foot of the castle, the sound seems alien, a message from another world. It reminds you of home, of the normal rhythms of your life that have been so violently disrupted. Normally, you would be in your hut, the day's work done, preparing for sleep. The bell would be a signal of rest. Tonight, it is a signal of how far you are from that reality. A few of the men around the fire stir. An older man crosses himself, his lips moving in a silent prayer. But most of the men, including you, do not move. You are too tired, too beaten down to feel any flicker of piety. Your prayer tonight is not one of formal worship. It is a deep, unspoken plea for survival, for the safety of your family, for an end to this ordeal. Religion in your life is a complex and often contradictory force. It is the source of your worldview, the framework that gives meaning to your suffering. The priest has taught you that your hardship is a test from God, a purification of your soul. He has taught you that your reward is not in this life, but in the eternal paradise of the next. This belief is a powerful tool for endurance. It is what allows you to accept a life of injustice and pain without falling into complete despair. It gives you a reason to keep going. But religion is also a source of fear and obligation. You fear the fires of hell, which the priest describes in terrifying, graphic detail. This fear keeps you in line, keeps you obedient to the authority of both the church and the Lord, for they are seen as two sides of the same divinely ordained coin. You attend Mass on Sunday not always out of a sense of spiritual joy, but because not attending would mark you out for suspicion. It would be a small act of rebellion that could bring the wrath of the priest and, by extension, the community down upon you. You pay your tithe, a tenth of your produce, to the church.
You do this because it is God's law, but you cannot help but feel the resentment as the priest's agent takes the grain that your hungry children need. You see the wealth of the local monastery, with its vast lands and full granaries, and you wonder at the distance between the church's preaching of poverty and its practice of wealth. Tonight, listening to the distant bell, you feel profoundly disconnected from the formal structures of your faith. God seems very far away. The saints who you usually pray to for intercession feel silent. Your immediate reality, the pain in your body, the fear of the English, the gnawing hunger, is so overwhelming that it leaves little room for spiritual contemplation. Your faith has become something more primal, more personal. It is in the desperate, silent prayer you sent up when you saw the messenger arrive. It is in the hope that a saint will watch over your wife and children in your absence. It is in the plea for mercy for the man who fell sick in the ditch. It is a faith born of desperation, not of devotion. The bell finishes its tolling. The sound fades into the night, leaving a profound silence in its wake. The world feels darker, colder, more empty. You did not go to Vespers. You did not kneel or recite the prayers. You simply sat by a fire, a lost and weary soul, and listened as a sound from your old life called out to you across the darkness, a reminder of a peace and an order that you may never know again.
Stories around the hearth. The fire crackles, a small, defiant pocket of light and warmth against the vast, cold darkness of the night. The men in your small group have finished their meager meals and are now huddled closer to the flames, seeking a few final moments of comfort before surrendering to a cold and uncomfortable sleep on the hard ground. The initial, exhausted silence begins to give way to quiet conversation. The talk is not of grand strategy or the politics of the war. It is small talk, the talk of peasants. They complain about the reeve. They discuss the health of their livestock. They wonder if the spring will be wet or dry. It is a way of reasserting a sense of normalcy, of talking about the things they understand in a situation that is terrifying and beyond their control. Then an old man, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, begins to tell a story. His voice is raspy but strong, and the other men fall silent to listen. He is not telling a true story. He is telling a folk tale, one of the old stories that have been passed down for generations, the kind you tell children to frighten them into behaving or to lull them to sleep. Tonight, he tells the story of the loup-garou, the werewolf. He speaks of a man in a nearby village, a man who was cursed, who on the nights of the full moon would transform into a great savage beast and roam the forests, his eyes glowing red in the dark. The storyteller's voice drops to a whisper as he describes the wolf's attacks, the missing sheep, the lone traveler who was never seen again. He builds the tension, his words painting vivid, terrifying pictures in the flickering firelight. You listen, captivated. You're a grown man, and a part of you knows this is just a story. But another, deeper part of you is not so sure. In your world, the line between the natural and the supernatural is thin. You believe in demons, in ghosts, in curses. The idea that a man could become a wolf does not seem entirely impossible. The story taps into your deepest fears of the darkness, of the wildness of the woods, of the evil that can lurk within an ordinary man. When the story is over, a heavy silence hangs over the group. The night seems darker, the woods more menacing. Another man, perhaps to break the tension, starts a different kind of story. This one is a fable, a comic tale about a cunning peasant named Jacot, who outwits a foolish, arrogant priest and a greedy lord. He tells of how Jacot uses his wits to avoid paying a fine or to trick the lord out of a fat pig. The men begin to chuckle, then to laugh. The laughter is a welcome sound, a release of the tension. The story of Jacot is a fantasy of empowerment. In the story, the peasant, the little guy, wins.
He uses his intelligence to triumph over the powerful figures who oppress him in real life. It is a form of wish fulfillment, a small verbal rebellion against a system that you could never challenge in reality. These stories are your literature, your entertainment. They are not written in books, but carried in the memories of the people. They serve a purpose. The scary stories are a way of giving a name and a shape to your fears, of making the chaotic, terrifying forces of the world into a monster that can, at least in a story, be understood or even defeated. The funny stories are a way of venting your frustrations, of laughing at your oppressors, which is the only revenge you can ever hope to have. You think of your own children back in the hut. You have told them these same stories. You have seen their eyes grow wide with fear at the tale of the werewolf, and you have seen them giggle at the antics of the clever peasant. It is a part of their education, part of how they learn about the world, its dangers and its injustices. The storytelling winds down. The fire is burning low. The men begin to roll themselves in their cloaks, preparing for sleep. The stories have provided a brief escape, a moment of shared community and emotion. They have not changed your situation. You are still a cold, hungry, and frightened man sleeping on the ground at the mercy of your enemies. But for a little while, the stories made the world a different place, and that, in itself, is a small kind of magic.
A knock at the door. You have drifted into a shallow, uneasy sleep, your body curled on the cold ground. The fire has died down to a bed of glowing embers, offering little light and even less heat. The camp is quiet, save for the soft snores of the men around you and the sighing of the wind. Suddenly, you are jolted awake. It is a sound, sharp and unnatural, that cuts through the night. It is the sound of shouting, not from your camp, but from the direction of the castle gate. It is followed by the frantic barking of dogs. You sit up instantly, your heart pounding in your chest. Every man in the camp is awake, their heads raised, listening. The shouting continues, a mixture of alarm and command. Then you hear another sound, a sound that makes your blood run cold. The heavy, groaning sound of the castle's portcullis being raised. What is happening? Has the English army arrived? Are they attacking the castle in the middle of the night? Panic, swift and electric, flashes through the camp. Men are scrambling to their feet, their faces pale in the faint starlight, their eyes wide with terror. But the sounds are not of battle. There is no clash of steel, no screams of the wounded. There is just the shouting, and then a new sound. A single horse, its hooves clattering on the cobblestones of the castle's outer bailey, approaching your camp at a gallop. A man on horseback, a castle guard holding a torch, thunders into your camp. "Up!" he bellows, his voice raw with urgency. "Everyone up! To the gate!" He offers no explanation. He does not need to. The raw fear in his own voice is explanation enough. Something is terribly wrong. You and the other men stumble to their feet and run towards the castle, a confused, frightened mob. As you get closer, you see what is happening. A small cart, pulled by a single exhausted-looking donkey, has arrived at the gate. Two men, their faces masks of desperation, are talking to the captain of the guard. In the back of the cart, you can see a huddled shape, a person wrapped in blankets. You are close enough now to hear their words, and what you hear confirms your deepest fears. The two men are from a small hamlet a few miles to the west. They have not come because of the English. They have come because of the sickness. The sickness. The word hangs in the air, heavy and loaded with meaning.
The man who collapsed in the ditch this afternoon was from their village. He died an hour after they got him home. And now, his wife and 2 of his children have the fever, and so do 2 other families in their hamlet. It is moving with terrifying speed. But it is the description of the symptoms that makes your stomach clench into a knot of ice. It is not just a fever. The men speak of the bubons, the dark, swollen lumps in the groin and the armpit. The plague. The word is whispered through the crowd of peasants, a single horrified exhalation. It is the Black Death. It has returned. It is not a rumor from a distant town. It is here. It is just a few miles away. The sick man you worked beside today was a carrier. You were all exposed. The captain of the guard is refusing the men entry. He shouts, "No one enters! The castle is sealed! Take your sickness away from here!" He is terrified, not of the English, but of this new, invisible enemy. The 2 men plead, they beg. The person in the cart, they say, is the hamlet's priest. He is sick, and they hope the castle's physician could help. The captain is unmoved. He orders his men to drive them away. The peasants from the hamlet, their faces etched in despair, turn their cart around and begin the slow, lonely journey back into the darkness. They have been turned away. They have been abandoned. You stand there frozen, the torchlight flickering on the terrified faces around you. The threat of the English army, which had consumed your every thought, suddenly seems distant, almost insignificant. This is a far more terrible foe. An army can be seen, it can be fought, but the plague is a ghost. It is an invisible miasma that can creep through any wall, past any guard. A profound, soul-shattering terror settles over you. You think of your own family back in your village. You think of the sick man you worked near. You think of the air you have been breathing, the ground you have been sleeping on. And for the first time today, you begin to pray. Not for strength, not for food, but for mercy. A desperate, hopeless prayer against a foe that knows none.
It's the plague again. The cart with the sick priest has disappeared back into the night, but its presence lingers, a toxic cloud of fear that has settled over the camp. The captain of the guard, his face grim, has sealed the castle gate. You and the other peasants are trapped outside, in the darkness, with the terrifying knowledge that the plague is not just near, it is among you. The news ripples through the assembled men, and the reaction is a mixture of panic and paralysis. Some men begin to back away from the group that worked near the sick man, as if creating a few feet of distance could ward off the invisible contagion. Others simply stand, their faces slack with shock, the implications of the news too vast and too terrible to fully comprehend. The plague. The words themselves have a terrible power. This is not just any sickness. This is the sickness. The great pestilence that swept through the land in your grandfather's time, leaving half the world dead. The stories of that time are your civilization's darkest nightmare. Stories of bodies piling up in the streets, of villages wiped from the map, of a world consumed by death and despair. And now it is here again. Your mind races, replaying the events of the day in a new, horrifying light. You see the face of the man who collapsed in the ditch. You remember how he was sweating, how his skin was flushed. You were only a few feet away from him. Did you breathe the same air?
Did his sweat flick onto your skin? The questions are a form of self-torture. The overseers, who had been so brutal and commanding just a few hours ago, are now as frightened as you are. Their authority has vanished, dissolved by a fear that a whip cannot control. The forced labor on the ditch is forgotten. The threat of the English army is forgotten. There is only one enemy now. A man near you begins to cough, a dry, racking sound. Everyone around him flinches away, their eyes wide with suspicion and fear. A simple cough, which yesterday would have gone unnoticed, is now a potential death sentence. The bonds of community, the shared misery that united you, are beginning to fray, replaced by a primal, individual instinct for survival. Every other person is a potential carrier, a source of danger. You think of your own body. You run a hand over your neck, under your arm, searching for the telltale swelling of a bubo. You feel nothing, but that is no comfort. You know the fever comes first. Is the ache in your muscles just from the day's work? Or is it the first sign of the sickness's fever? Is the chill you feel from the night air, or from the onset of the plague's fever? You are trapped in a prison of paranoia, your own body now a potential traitor. What are you to do? The castle is sealed. You cannot go back to your village for fear of carrying the sickness to your own family. But you cannot stay here in this contaminated camp. There are no good choices, only different paths to a likely doom. A few men, driven by blind panic, decide to flee. They simply turn and run into the darkness of the woods, hoping to outrun a disease that has already been sown among them. Most, like you, are paralyzed, unsure of what to do, where to go. You huddle back near the dying fire, but there is no comfort in its warmth. The men are silent, each one lost in his own private terror. The world has shrunk to this small, doomed circle of frightened men, waiting for the first signs of the sickness to appear on themselves or on their neighbors. The priest has taught you that the plague is the wrath of God, a punishment for sin. You try to pray, to beg for mercy, but your prayers feel hollow, lost in the overwhelming scale of the catastrophe. This is not a punishment. It is an apocalypse. The night, which was already full of terrors, is now dominated by this single, overwhelming fear. You are no longer waiting for the English. You are waiting for the fever. You are waiting for the swellings. You are waiting for the plague to claim its next victim. And as you sit there, shivering in the dark, you have a terrible, sinking feeling that it will not have to wait for long.
Smoke, fear, and a final meal. You are not sure how much time has passed. The night is a single, undifferentiated stretch of cold and fear. The initial frantic panic in the camp has subsided, replaced by a heavy, suffocating lethargy. There is nowhere to run, nothing to do but wait. The men have clustered into small, silent groups, instinctively seeking the company of those from their own village, as if familiarity offers some small protection against the vast, anonymous terror of the plague. You are sitting with two other men from your village. One of them, a young man named Pierre, has managed to kill a rabbit he caught in a snare he had set earlier in the day. In a desperate attempt to create a moment of normalcy, to do something other than simply wait for death, you decide to cook it. This is your final meal. You skin the small animal with your knife, your hands clumsy with cold and fatigue. You spear the carcass on a green stick and hold it over the glowing embers of the fire. The smell of the roasting meat fills the air. It should be a comforting, appetizing smell. But tonight, it is mixed with the scent of fear.
It feels like a funeral feast. As the rabbit cooks, you begin to feel the sickness in your own body. It starts as a deep, unshakable chill, a cold that seems to be radiating from your bones outwards, a cold that the fire cannot touch. Then comes the headache, a dull, throbbing pressure behind your eyes that quickly intensifies into a hammering pain. Your muscles, which were already aching from the day's labor, now feel as if they are being torn from your bones. You know what this is. The waiting is over. The plague has found you. You try to hide it. You pull your cloak tighter around you, trying to conceal the violent shivering that has taken hold of your body. You do not want to be the one who brings the open terror into your small group. You do not want to see the fear in your friends' eyes when they look at you. The rabbit is cooked. You tear off a small piece of the hot meat. You put it in your mouth, but you have no appetite. The taste is like ash. Chewing is an enormous effort. You manage to swallow one bite, but your stomach rebels and you turn away from the fire and retch, bringing up nothing but bile. Now they know. Your two companions look at you. Their faces are pale and strained in the firelight. There is pity in their eyes, but there is also a new distance. You are no longer one of them. You are one of the afflicted. You have crossed a line, and you are now a source of danger to them. They edge away from you just a few inches, but the gap feels like a chasm. You feel a profound and desolate loneliness. You are going to die here, on this cold ground, far from your wife and your children. They will never know for certain what happened to you. You will simply disappear from their lives, another man lost to the war, or the sickness, or the general chaos of the times. The smoke from the fire stings your eyes, but it is not just the smoke that makes them water. You think of Alara's face. You think of your daughter's smile. You think of your son, and the hope you had that his life might somehow be better than yours. These images flicker in your fevered brain, precious and unbearably painful. You are too weak to sit up any longer. You lie down on the cold earth, pulling your cloak around your shivering body. The world begins to fade in and out of focus. The fire, the faces of your friends, the dark shape of the castle against the star-filled sky, it all seems distant, unreal. The only realities are the hammering in your head, the fire in your veins, and the icy cold in your bones. Your final meal is over. The fear is no longer a future prospect. It is a present reality, consuming you from the inside out.
The fire grows weak. Your world has shrunk to the small patch of ground on which you lie. The sounds of the camp, the whispers of the other men, the distant cry of an owl, they have all faded into a dull, meaningless roar. The only things you are aware of are the internal sensations of your own body, which has become a battlefield. The fever is raging now, a consuming fire that burns away your strength and your thoughts. One moment you are burning with a heat so intense you want to tear off your clothes. The next you are racked with a chill so profound that your teeth chatter uncontrollably. Your body is no longer yours to command. It shudders and twitches, a vessel caught in a storm. The fire in the center of the camp, your only source of external warmth, is dying. No one is tending to it anymore. The logs have crumbled into a bed of embers, their red glow fading to a dull orange, then a faint, pulsing red. As the fire weakens, the darkness and the cold press in, a physical weight on your chest. The dying fire is a mirror of your own life force, a small spark being slowly, inexorably extinguished. You begin to cough. It is a deep, dry, hacking cough that tears at your throat and sends waves of pain through your chest. Each cough is an enormous effort, leaving you breathless and weaker than before. The air you breathe is heavy with the smoke of the dying fire and the dampness of the night, and it feels like you are breathing in ground glass. Your mind begins to drift. The lines between reality and hallucination blur. You see flashes of your life, vivid and disjointed. You see the sun on a field of ripe barley. You see your wife's face on your wedding day. You see the small, perfect hands of your firstborn child. These images are intensely beautiful and agonizingly sad. They are memories of a life that is now slipping through your fingers like sand. Then the images turn dark. You see the face of the Reeve twisted in anger. You see the English soldiers, their eyes cold and merciless. You see the great dark wings of the plague, a vast shadow falling over the land. You feel a surge of a new, sharp pain in your groin. You reach down with a trembling hand, and you feel it. A small, hard lump, no bigger than a pigeon's egg, but exquisitely tender to the touch. It is the bubone, the sign, the seal of your fate. Any last desperate flicker of hope you might have been clinging to is extinguished. There is no doubt now. There is no escape. You are alone. Your friends have moved further away, their fear a palpable wall between you and them. They are not cruel. They are just terrified. They are trying to save themselves. You cannot blame them. You lie on your back and look up at the sky. The stars are cold and brilliant, a scatter of diamonds on black velvet. They are impossibly distant, utterly indifferent to your small human suffering. They have watched 1,000 generations of men live and die on this same patch of earth. Your passing will not cause them to blink. The fire is now just a few faint, pulsing red specks in a bed of gray ash. The last of the warmth is gone. The cold is absolute. You curl your body into a tight ball, a futile attempt to preserve what little warmth remains within you. You are shivering, you are coughing, and you are utterly, completely alone, waiting for the end, in the cold and the dark.
Your neighbor dies in the night. In a brief moment of lucidity, a temporary lull in the storm of your fever, you become aware of a sound nearby. It is a low, guttural moaning, a sound of pure animal suffering. It is not coming from you. It is coming from another man, lying only a few yards away. It is Jean, a man from your village, a man you have known your whole life. He too has the plague. You turn your head, a monumental effort, and look at him. In the faint, silvery light of the moon, you can see his form, writhing on the ground. He is further along in the sickness than you are. His breathing is a ragged, wet gasp. His moans are punctuated by delirious shouts, fragments of words, names of his wife and children. You watch him, and it is like looking into a mirror of your own immediate future. You see the same agony, the same helplessness. You are both on the same dark road, and he is just a few steps ahead of you. There is no one helping him. The other men, including those from his own family, keep their distance, their forms dark, silent lumps in the darkness. To approach him is to approach the disease itself.
He is an island of suffering, and no one dares to try and reach him. You remember Jean as a strong man, a good worker, quick with a joke. You remember plowing a field alongside him last spring. You remember drinking ale with him at a wedding feast 2 years ago. You remember his pride when his son was born. Now all of that is being stripped away, burned up by the fever, leaving only this core of raw, desperate pain. His thrashing begins to subside. His moans grow weaker, turning into a soft, whimpering sound. His breathing becomes shallower, a series of quick, fluttering gasps like a snared bird. And then there is silence, a profound, absolute silence. Jean is dead. His death is not a dramatic event. There is no final, noble speech. There is no priest to administer last rites. There is no loving family member to hold his hand. He has simply died, quietly, in the dirt, a few yards from his neighbors, under an indifferent sky. No one moves. No one goes to check on him. Everyone knows he is gone. His body will lie there until morning. There will be no proper burial, no funeral mass. In the morning, if anyone has the strength or the courage, a shallow pit will be dug, and he will be rolled into it, unceremoniously, just to get the body away from the living. His death is not a tragedy to mourn. It is a problem of sanitation to be dealt with. The sight of his still form is a final, brutal confirmation of your own fate. This is how you will die. Alone. In filth. Your death will not be marked. Your passing will not be mourned by anyone beyond your own small family, and even they may never know for sure what happened to you. The fear you have been feeling transforms into something else, something colder and heavier. It is resignation, a deep, weary acceptance of the inevitable. You have fought all your life, against hunger, against the Lord, against the endless work, but this is a fight you cannot win. You close your eyes. You no longer see the point in watching. You turn your thoughts inward, away from the cold, dead body of your neighbor, and you wait for your own breath to grow shallow, for your own moans to fade into that same final silence.
You don't wake up. The world, which had been a storm of pain and fevered dreams, begins to grow quiet. The hammering in your head subsides to a dull, distant throb. The fire in your veins cools to a gentle warmth. The icy chill in your bones recedes. For the first time in what seems like an eternity, you are no longer in agony. Your breathing, which had been a series of ragged, painful gasps, becomes slow and easy. Each breath is deep and calm. You are floating in a place of profound peace, a quiet, dark, and comfortable space. You are vaguely aware of your body lying on the hard ground, but it feels distant, a heavy, discarded garment that no longer belongs to you. The persistent itch of the lice, the ache of your muscles, the gnawing hunger in your belly, all of it is gone. You are finally, truly, at rest. The sounds of the night, the wind, the rustling of the other men, have faded away. There is only a gentle, humming silence. It is the most peaceful sound you have ever heard. Your mind, free from the torment of the fever, becomes clear, and in this clarity, you begin to remember. Not the hardship, not the pain, not the fear. You remember the good things, the small, bright moments that are the true substance of a life. You remember the feeling of your son's small hand clutching your finger as you walked back from the field one evening. You remember the exact shade of the summer sky just before a thunderstorm. You remember the taste of the first ale after the harvest, cool and sweet in your throat. You remember the sound of your wife's laughter, a sound you have not heard in a very long time, but which you can now recall with perfect clarity. These memories are not sad. They are not accompanied by a sense of loss. They are simply there, beautiful and complete, like smooth, polished stones in the palm of your hand. They are the things that were real. They are the things that mattered. A faint light begins to grow in the darkness behind your closed eyes. It is not the harsh, gray light of another miserable dawn. It is a soft, warm, welcoming light, like the glow of a perfect fire on a winter's night. It seems to be calling to you, pulling you gently towards it. You feel no fear. The terror of the plague, the anxiety of survival, the resentment of your servitude, it has all been washed away. There is only this profound sense of peace, of release. The long, hard struggle is over. You think of Elara one last time. You hope she will be safe. You hope your children will be strong. You send a thought out into the darkness, a thought of love, a thought of farewell. It is the last thing you have to give. And then you let go. You allow yourself to drift towards the warm, gentle light. You do not fight it. You welcome it. It is the end of the pain, the end of the hunger, the end of the fear. It is the end of the long, hard day.
Your name is forgotten, but not your day. The sun rises. It is a new day, but you are not there to see it. Your body lies still and cold on the frozen ground, one among several who did not survive the night. In a few hours, the other men, the survivors, will move on, driven by fear and the instinct to live. They will leave you behind. Your body will be returned to the earth, your bones becoming part of the soil you worked for your entire life. Your name, whatever it was, is forgotten. It was never written in a chronicle, never carved in stone. It was spoken by your family, by your neighbors, and then it faded like a voice on the wind. You are one of the countless, nameless millions who lived and died in this time, your individual life a single drop of water in a vast and turbulent ocean. But your day is not forgotten. The single, harrowing day we have just lived through is the story of an age. It is a story of mud and toil, of faith and fear, of profound injustice and incredible resilience. It is a testament to the human capacity to endure the unbearable. You were not a king or a knight or a saint. You were a peasant. Your life was not a grand adventure, but a quiet daily struggle for survival. You did not change the course of history, you simply lived it, at its hardest, most unforgiving edge. And yet, in that single day, you lived a full life. You felt the cold of the earth and the warmth of a fire. You knew the pain of hunger and the simple pleasure of a piece of bread. You worked, you loved, you feared, you hoped. You protected your family as best you could. You found moments of grace in a world that offered very little. You were a father, a husband, a neighbor, a man. To live that one day, from the cold ashes of dawn to the final quiet breath in the darkness, was enough. It was a complete story. It was a life. And now, as you lie in the comfort and safety of your own time, let the memory of that day recede. Let the peace that came at its end be your own. The struggle is over.
The silence is complete. There is nothing left to do but rest.